Hi everyone, welcome to July. So as we move into the 7th month of the year, we're obviously crossing the halfway point in terms of our Gregorian calendar, but we're also passing the halfway point of the year energetically. So we've just gone past summer solstice a couple of weeks ago on June the 21st, and that of course gives us the polarity from December the 21st, from winter solstice. Of all of the signs of the zodiac, I think Cancer and Capricorn are almost the ones that people have the most understanding of, even if they know absolutely nothing about astrology. And that's simply because of the tropics, because of the equatorial tropics on the planet. So we know fundamentally that Cancer and Capricorn are opposite each other, don't we? And Capricorn is our winter energy, our solstice energy. Cancer is our high summer energy, just coming off summer solstice. And they really represent this beautiful kind of binary polarity that the whole zodiac, that the whole of the natural world is represented through the quantum world, through geometry, through maths, through plants, through the northern and southern hemisphere, and of course through astrology, all represents. So this weekend we are moving through the kind of the run-up energies of the full moon in Capricorn, which is going to be tomorrow, 3rd of July for most of the world. It's going to be on the 4th of July for a few people super far west in the later time zones in the US. But for most of us, tomorrow will be the day that we cusp this kind of completion of the cycle. And that's because the full moon Capricorn is the polarity of the new moon Capricorn, which is what we experienced, I think I'm going to say it was either the 6th or 7th of January. I remember being in India on the beach in Agonda, doing a little stream from there for you. So that's kind of nice and tidily up at the front end of the year in terms of the calendar year 2023. So this full moon is a really nice kind of bookend. It's an opportunity for us to look at this first 6 months of the year, whether we count from the winter solstice to the summer, from the new moon in Cap to the full moon in Cap, or simply from the solstices. It's a really nice time for us to connect with the idea of this halfway point, the midway point of the year, and to see where we've got to and how we feel about it. May has been heavy, and June, I think, was pretty heavy. Lots of you that read me and follow me a lot know that June is not my favourite month. I struggle a lot with Gemini energy, and this year was no different. So I'm probably a little bit biased there, but I know anecdotally from clients, from what I'm seeing and hearing in groups, from what's coming up when I tune in, that really June has been quite a challenging energy for a lot of us. There's been a lot of heaviness for an air energy. Air energy, at least if nothing else, is usually characterised by kind of what we have today in lots of ways. A lot of lightness, a lot of wind, a lot of movement and fluidity. And actually June felt very weighed down, very oppressive and very humid. And I think that played out in our weather here in the UK, as well as in the energies. A lot of people felt very under pressure and, suffocated, like they couldn't breathe, they couldn't get their words out. A lot of illness going around, a lot of coughing and kind of clearing of the throat chakras, but not necessarily completing the process, which I think is perhaps what we're doing as we come through this full moon. So July is definitely feeling quite different in energy as we come off this sort of heavy, big eclipse season that was happening during May, and then this kind of oppressiveness of June. But there is still a lot of big stuff happening in July. So the full moon this Monday, tomorrow, recording this view on Sunday the 2nd of July, the full moon is the first big event. I have talked about this briefly in another video where I've given you a little sand bath as well to sit with the themes of this moon. But to summarise, Capricorn is an earth energy. It's very much CEO, it's leadership, it's about the structures and foundations we build, and it's about resilience and about our ability to keep on going when things feel really tough. So it's a really timely moon in that sense, because it does feel like things have been quite heavy and challenging for quite some time. So as we move through this, it's a really good time for organisation, for kind of moving through the arc of struggle and seeing the silver linings, looking at the opportunities that have come out of those struggles, and finding the gratitude, always a great full moon practice, the gratitude for the struggles themselves, because they have brought us plenty of opportunity, as well as all the sticky icky stuff that we find so hard to process sometimes. I'm just checking my notes so I don't go completely off kilter. This is also a really good moon I've written down for rebuilding and for exactly the thing I just said, actually, for bringing ourselves back online, back on track. It can be quite easy when we get quite far from the source material or the source energy of a project to remember why we started it. So the completion of this Capricorn cycle is a really good time to kind of realign, to get back in kind of conjunction with your purposes and your goals and your targets, and just kind of bring all of your practices, all of your thought processes, all of the energy you're pouring outwards right now back into those particular goals and targets. So it's a really good way to start the season, to start July, the month rather, Capricorn is a very grounding energy, which I know I need. I think lots of people are feeling the need to get into ground. And some of the things I'll be working with over this weekend, I suggest, if you have them around, to bring in certain crystals. Like smoky quartz is one of the best Capricorn crystals. It's really, really wonderful for bringing a lot of chaos and noise in the mind, a lot of stress and anxiety down into ground. So I use this particular prism a lot for kind of grounding and bringing that mental distress down. Another really good Capricorn crystal is Sputnik aragonite, which I absolutely love. This is one of my favourites. And this is just a wonderful earthy crystal. And I think when you look at it, it just feels like earth to me. It feels like desert. It feels like ground. It has got this really lovely tactile energy to it that I really kind of find almost kind of like a stress ball that doesn't move, like an energetic stress ball in these moments. So I love this little piece. But Sputnik aragonite is very, very grounding. So if you have been feeling quite overwhelmed by the big energies going on lately, and by the air of Gemini season, then this could be a really good one for you. The other crystal I want to recommend over this moon is black tourmaline, one of the most protective crystals. One of my favourites. This one is on a mica matrix, so it's a bit pinky crystally as well. But the black tourmaline, the fibrous linear crystal in here, this lovely big chunk, is very protective. It's also really good at transmuting stress. It's really good for helping to replenish our roots. It's really good for your plants. So if you happen to be a bit green fingered, you can see I've always got my plants with me. You might want to get some little tiny chips of it and pop it into the soil of your house plants if they're having not such a great time, and you might find it's just the vavavim they need. But tourmaline is really good for helping us, adjust our roots and our structures, and come into some sort of balance there. I also really love brown jasper at this season. And I also actually like a lot of labradorite, which is more of a Scorpio crystal. I can never get enough. And I'm wearing some today, you can see. I'm wearing my labradorite pendant with some onyx and some marbled onyx as well. And the labradorite is really to remind us that we are kind of on this journey. And because we're in Cancer season as a solar season, although we have got the Capricorn lunar energy going on, we are invited to really spend time with our intuition in a lot of depth during Cancer season. So although we've got this kind of big Capricorn full moon, which is about kind of completing cycles, about grounding, rooting and structures, we are reminded that we can get a lot of information about what we need for those structures from our intuition. So I'm a Capricorn rising and I was Scorpio sun and a Sag moon. So I find that I can often get dragged so fully into earth stuff that I forget my intuitive aspects, or that I can only do one or the other. And the reminder really, and what I love for labradorite, is that we can always have a balance of both. In terms of oil scents, incenses, I obviously will be using my Rock and Ritual Mist. I'm using a mixture of balance and flow at the moment, but because I have been feeling personally so ungrounded lately, I'm really going for balance, which is based on geranium, which is one of the most sort of restorative and balancing and healing scents out there in the plant world. And this one also has a lot of spruce and cedarwood in it, so speaking to our tree spirits, our tree energies, again that rooting, that structure, the longevity and the resilience. And then this is also touched with a little bit of bergamot, which is kind of uplifting. It's got that citrusy lightness. Bergamot's the almost like the lemon balm leaf that we get in Earl Grey tea, and it has a kind of a clarity and a cut through that can be really helpful when we're kind of in a season that feels quite smoke and mirrors. So obviously if you're interested in mist, you only have to drop me a message or pop over to Rock and Ritual, but you can always bring those scents or any kind of grounding scents that speak to you into your pulse points, into your choices with your scented candles, into your incenses, your bath oils, your shower gel. There's all sorts of ways to connect scent, and I do find it really helpful to bring it into the lunar cycles to help them seem just a bit more visceral and tangible for us. So I've mentioned the dreams and the illusions a little bit, and it would be remiss of me not to mention a really big transit or a really big situation going on astrologically, which actually started on June the 30th. So I'm including it in my little July broadcast, but it's something that began on Thursday, and that is Neptune going retrograde. So Neptune, we're really out there on the edge of the zodiac, on the edge of the solar system. Neptune is our planet of illusions, of imagination, fantasy, mind-bending stuff, mind-altering stuff. It's where we sit with things like addiction, with psychedelics. For me, a lot of sound healing work sits in the sort of Neptunian realms. And it's also where we deal with kind of the secrets and lies, what lies beneath the fog, the smoke and mirrors, the stuff that's a little intangible that we can't really see. It's famously hard to interpret, famously challenging to get a grip on in your chart. I don't know any astrologers for whom it's their favourite planet, it's certainly not mine. And the retrograde is in some ways helpful, because what it really does is kind of lift away those smoke and mirrors of all things Neptunian. So the thinking is that if you have been pretty rose tinted about part of your life, if you have been in your imaginative kind of creative self and not really living in the real world, that the retrograde will pull that down and force you to see what's truly there. It all seems and sounds quite aggressive to me, and I'm trying to find more comfortable ways to flow with the Neptune retrograde. But I do think it's going to be a little bit of a stripping back of maybe the things that we've been hoping might work out, and maybe they're just not going to. And there's a degree of acceptance in that. But it is quite helpful. That comes, this transit, this shape shift from Neptune comes literally on top of the full moon in Capricorn, because Capricorn is resilience. He shows us where our strength is, and he shows us that we can keep going even in the face of enormous challenge and what seems like a tsunami of stress. So Neptune might have given us a little bit of a shake around this week, and I know my Thursday night was particularly shaky. So if you had any weird experiences on Thursday, or found yourself telling someone how you really feel, or hearing that from somewhere else, as in my case, it was really, I think, a lot of the disturbances in the force coming up to the forefront. So the retrograde in Neptune's retrograde will be ongoing until December. It's the first week of December, and then he'll be stationing direct again. And it's worth mentioning this retrograde, of course, is in Pisces, where Neptune has been for some time and will continue to be. It's a very long orbit out there on the edge of the solar system. But Neptune is in Pisces, rather. Neptune in Pisces is exalted. He's in his strong suit. He is very amplified. Pisces is even more higher self, spirituality, smoke and mirrors, the 5D, the stuff we can't really see, the less tangible. And although that can be a beautiful place to spend time in when the energy is flowing forwards, when it's flowing backwards, it might feel a little bit sticky, and you might find yourself questioning a lot of the things you felt were your truth. It's quite normal, I would say, during Neptune's exalted retrogrades to feel everything you know is maybe falling apart, or everything you know suddenly seems not to be the truth. It could be, a practice or a teacher you've held in high esteem for so long, and suddenly you're like, is it kind of a crock of shit? I can't really tell. And that slight discombobulation of not really knowing which way is up. So look out for that. Don't be afraid of it. I know I'm trying not to be, despite the inherent sense of slight peculiarity that seems to be out there today. But know that's rattling along in the background. There's a couple of other big things happening fairly quick out of the bat this July, and one of them is Sirius and the Sun's alignment. So Sirius is a star. Sirius has particular importance to the ancient Egyptians. So if Sekhem healing or anything in the kind of the pyramid plane is in your practice, this might be a really interesting time to tune in and to do your channeling. If you work a lot with Isis, as I do, you might find that you feel like your interactions, your what comes in for you is feeling a little stronger at this time. So Sirius is said to be a spiritual sun, spiritual sun as opposed to our sun, which is the earth sun. And the ancient Egyptians believed that when you died, or when the pharaohs died, they were sent to Sirius to kind of be regenerated, rebirthed, and sent back to earth in their new form. So it holds this kind of very beautiful ancient wisdom. And Sirius and the Sirius Gateway is a very kind of mystical part of the universe. There's a lot of people out there, starseeds, a lot of channelers and psychics who have a very deep connection to Sirius that can't really be translated into our languages. So it's something I know less about, but I'm very drawn to. I've definitely had a few interesting visions and connections with the Sirius landscape. So I'm really going to be working on those in the next few days. And if Sekhem healing, if anything to do with ancient Egypt is in your practice, if you work a lot with sound, most sound healers have kind of an Egyptian layer somewhere buried in, it's inherent. So you may find that this next week, because this alignment of Sirius and the Sun is going to be over the 4th and 5th, that's 4th and 5th of July, next Tuesday and Wednesday, you may find this is an extra good time to really be getting into those higher levels of your 5 and 8D intuitive self. As we move through this kind of superpowered psychic downloads phase, we've got Mars moving into Virgo, which is July the 10th. So Mars is not necessarily super happy in Virgo. Mars is a fiery warrior, as we know. Virgo is all about the mind-body connection and is very earthy and has an attention to detail and a stillness, which is perhaps not conducive to Mars's best self. However, when we have Mars moving into any sign, what we know is that we can then take action in that sign's key kind of themes and narratives. And for Virgo, that mind-body connection is usually a call into health. It's a call into practices, into new habits, new routines. It's a great time to do your juice cleanse or your water fast, or start a new Pilates class, or get into a new regime at the gym, but it's really a great time for mindset adjustment. So Mars's presence in Virgo feels like a really beautiful time to have a look at mindset, to see where you want to send your energy next, and to look at the tools you're going to use to send it there, because this is a really nice time in which to activate an energy, Virgo energy, which can usually be quite in the mind, and actually Mars makes it more about the body. So a great time to look at what you can be doing in terms of getting some new projects underway for yourself and for your physical form. I know for me, I've been thinking about doing a juice cleanse for absolutely ages. I used to do them all the time. I used to start every single month with 3 days of juicing, and I haven't done it for years now. So I think I'll make this Mars and Virgo transit the time I make that shift and get going again. And that's an example of how you might bring a new regime in. So then we're halfway through the month, and actually it is a front-loaded month, so there isn't loads more after this, but the big thing that's happening is around July the 17th. So July 17th, we have 2 big things ongoing, and we have the new moon in Cancer, and we also have the lunar nodes switching signs. So the new moon in Cancer is a very gentle moon. It is sensitive, it's highly nourishing, highly nurturing, it's very intuitive. It's all about our water energy, about how we mother ourselves, how we mother other people. So when we're moving through this Cancerian energy, it's such a beautiful time to just go inwards and to really spend time in water if you can. If, like me, you're lucky enough to live by the sea, by the ocean, it's a great time to get in it if it isn't in your daily routine already. Failing that, baths, just kind of luxuriating in the liquid element and really connecting to your sacral chakra, and if you have one, to your womb or the space where your womb was. So it's a really beautiful time for understanding what kind of nourishing energy looks like to you. I struggle with the word mother quite a lot, and it's not necessarily mother in terms of motherhood, remembering that mother energy is all about, giving care, giving kind of energy to something, giving the seed of life to something. And that could be a business, it could be a personal project, it could be a friendship. It could be all sorts of different things other than just a parent-child relationship. But that new moon in Cancer is a new cycle that's going to run us all the way through until Christmas. So where we've had the full moon in Capricorn starting out of July with kind of closing off the first half of the year, we've got a little breath, and then we've got the new moon in Cancer kind of kicking off the second half of the year and inviting us into a new story, a new narrative to move through the summer towards the winter solstice. So the new moon in Cancer is going to be happening at exactly the same time as the lunar nodes switching signs. And this is a real biggie that I really want to share with you, because the lunar nodes are such an important part of our astrology, and they often get left behind because they are not physical beings or bodies as such. They are mathematical points, and they are mathematical points between Earth and the moon. So the Chinese have a really beautiful analogy for this, which I often share when I talk about the nodes. They talk about the south node being the tail of the dragon. If you imagine that kind of beautiful, kind of evocative Chinese calligraphy image of the moon with the dragon kind of wrapped around it, his tail's lashing around the bottom and his head's roaring at the top. So this is kind of seen as part of the Tau symbol. At the south node is the base, it's the tail, and this is where there's a point of release. This is the stuff that we've brought into this life, knowing what to do. We know how to experience this energy. We are comfortable with it. It's already in our skill set, our powers. We've lived it out in our previous lives. So the tail is kind of slashing around, releasing old energies out through the south node. And then the north node that we're roaring into is that point of potential. It's our North Star, our compass. It's where we're moving towards in this life. So very often astrologers will tell you in the tropical tradition that your north node is part of your destiny point, your soul's coiling, and where your north node is in your chart often can be a really good indicator when seen alongside your midheaven and often your 10th house of like your career, your ambition, your legacy, what you're here to learn to do. So when the nodes change signs, which happens about every 18 months, it creates a big kind of shift in the collective experience of lunar energy. And this is because the eclipses happen over the nodes. So we've been moving through almost 2 years of Scorpio Taurus eclipses. We had an eclipse in Scorpio back in May, and we'll have the final one in the full moon in Taurus in November. But we've already had the beginning of the next chapter, because the nodes are now moving into Aries and Libra. And we've already had an eclipse in Aries, and we're going to begin the Aries-Libra eclipse season in full force on October the 14th, when we're going to have a new moon eclipse in Libra. So this is a really beautiful energy, actually, because Aries and Libra are cardinal signs. Aries is the first sign of the zodiac. It's the sign that's about fire, initiation. independence and our kind of standing in ourself. You know, I am is the real phrasing that we bring a wrap around the Aries energy. And Libra is cardinal in terms of our autumnal, vernal energies. It's the beginning of a season which is all about the binary aspect, you and one other, your connection, your relationship, your partnership, seventh house energy. So that polarity of the first and the seventh, much like Cancer and Capricorn, is an invitation to see how you are in yourself, how you are with others. And this eclipse portal of coming up for 2 years that we're going to be moving through is going to be a real deep dive and a real kind of work through the shadows and the sunshine of what it really means for us to be self and to be in partnership. So the current energies are very much inwards. They do feel very much about the self. And I think we've been invited into that with the first Aries eclipse that we moved through. But we're really kind of called into a kind of a different overall perspective moving through these nodal switches. These are relatively rare. It's 18 months to 2 year, 18 months with the node switch, a 2 year window for the eclipses. And it really can help us to think about what's going to happen with, you know, with how we do relationship going into the next chapter. So have a look at where Aries and Libra are in your chart, and it's a really good space to kind of look into and to explore as you begin to think about this being the focal point for the big lunar happenings of the next couple of years. So once we get through the new moon and the lunar node switch on the 17th of July, we have one really big thing left to go in the calendar month of July, and that is Venus's retrograde. And that's happening from July the 22nd, which is right on top of the sun moving into Leo. So we do have this sort of twin energy this month. We have the full moon in Capricorn and the Sirius and star and sun conjunction right at the beginning. And then we have the new moon in Cancer, and that's right on top of the nodal switch. And then we have Leo season, the Leo solar system, which is right on top of Venus's retrograde in Leo. So it's really quite a big thing. Another kind of astrological energy that only happens every 18 months. So Venus retrogrades every other year. The last Venus retrograde was in Capricorn, in an earth sign. So this is going to feel very different. Venus is retrograding in Leo. Fire, you know, the big May, and I've got especially washed hair, which I can't stop flicking around today because my parting has gone in a crazy place and it won't settle down, but it's very Leo today, and that is very indicative of the Venus and Leo energy we are in and moving towards. We already have Venus in Leo, but we're about to start moving into that retrograde at the end of July. Leo is heart awakening. It's a big heart energy. Venus is a big heart energy. They are kind of like the fire heart and the romance heart all tangled in together. Venus in Leo, the battery's going to go. Venus in Leo is really asking us to look at kind of how we kind of viscerally expand in our relationships and how we really tell the story of them in a way that's really seen. It's not about relationships that are under the covers behind closed doors that nobody else sees, and you're not really saying your truth and not really sharing the full breadth of your passion with your partner. Venus in Leo is about adding fire to all of those things, about being seen, being confident in speaking your truth, saying I love you loud and proud, and also saying that to yourself, remembering that Venus is not just about love relationships, it's about self-love. It's also about how we do love in terms of luxuriating in beauty and art and music. So it's really an invitation to kind of fall in love with, you know, the fire in your life all over again, the stuff that really sets you on fire, that makes you feel passionate, that makes you feel excited to be alive on this planet and in this body and in this world. So a retrograde in this energy, much like the Neptune retrograde I talked about right at the top of this, it's really, you know, like a slight kind of shift, not backwards, but it's an invitation to reflect. Where have we been backwards about coming forwards? Where maybe have we not been fully expanded in our kind of Venusian behavior? Where have we been really needing to say something to someone or to ourselves and we haven't been getting it out? This Venus energy is going to be all about kind of calling into question the places where we haven't been able to speak our truth, or where what we've been speaking has been perhaps a little superficial or not really with enough depth. You know, I've been saying, you know, when you hear people be like, oh, I love you, babes, and it's a bit, you know, kind of offhand, it's a little bit towy, it's a bit reality TV, it doesn't really feel like they mean it. So all of those energies around Venusian themes, you know, where actually they're not really feeling very true, they're not ringing true, they don't feel honest, they don't feel like they're deep, are going to be cleared out under this Venus in Leo. So all those relationships that feel like they haven't quite been landing for you, or a bit like, are we connected? Is this really a thing? You know, or certainly if you've been in the online dating landscape, it's an opportunity for a big clear out. And this, of course, can apply to all areas of your life where you need to clear out from the heart and make space for a heartful expansion when Venus goes direct again, which will be at the beginning of September. So that is pretty much your July summary. There's a couple of other bits and pieces happening aspect-wise, but they're right at the end. So we'll save those for later on because I've already talked to you for 25 minutes. It's actually a much bigger July than I realised. So I've been talking at you furiously. I don't normally do these things where I just talk and don't use instruments and don't break it up with some sound. There is going to be some sound on a full moon and Cap video if you'd like that as well. Again, I draw your attention to supportive crystals in this season, especially with a lot of retrograde energy. I really am feeling for the smoky quartz and very much the sputnik aragonite. So tool yourself up, get your sound healing on. I hope to see you in the sound space soon. And I wish you a beautiful July. Feel free to drop into comments, let me know any questions you have, anything that's showing up for you. It's really, I think, fascinating and validating for everyone in the community to see and hear people share. They often see and hear things they need to see and hear themselves, what they want to say and are afraid of saying. And it is really supportive when people see other people speaking their truth. They feel they can offer the same. So thank you for being here, and I will see you very soon.